Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm Liza Fromer. We're here to celebrate John Taylor and his new book, In the Pleasure Group. So we're going to chat for a bit. He's going to read a little bit, and then we're going to take some questions from you. Oh my God, this is what it's like to be a rock star. It's awesome.
So I haven't flown in especially.
Wow. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I've actually never experienced, just walking down here and seeing that reaction, that passionate feeling. How did you deal with that the first time that hit you? That's like a thunderbolt.
Well, the first time that hit us is actually the first scene in the book. And that was in 1981, summer of 1981. It's pretty extreme. These things, where's that technical guy? Where's that technical guy? He said to me, you've just got to forget these things are on your head. And right now, all I can think about is this thing's on my head. Is there any way we can kind of adjust them?
I think there's a million people who would love to help you with that.
I'm always a little distressed. I feel like Pete Bush when I've got one of these things.
Here he is.
Just like a pair of sunglasses. Oh, that's better. That's much better.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, I can relax. Okay.
So we were talking about how you, and it is the first scene in the book, which is amazing. How you deal with that? So you, how old were you how far did Duran come when you first, the curtains opened or whatever happened in that?
And then we started doing, the record company, the second single that they chose was a flop. And right away the vultures were circling saying Revolution and and we hadn't even released our first album. So we started doing photos for the sort of teen girl press. In the UK we had Jackie and Diana, my guy, Nate, I don't know what and
Tiger Beat, Sassy.
No, I just thought, whatever, whatever it takes to get music over. We started doing photos for the magazine, and then we started getting and actually that was a lot of fun. We would get together at the, if we weren't working, we'd get together and start actually and that was kind of fun. We started, forging, alliances, sort of making friends in a way with fans that were out there. And then we went back on the road that July. And we knew that there was interesting bands.
You've got a really good
that kind of, somehow, I don't know what we did, but somehow we inspired that kind of feeling in people. And yes, it's still very strong. It's quite healthy, isn't it, to let off steam like that,
It must be kind of addictive.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, actually, because I was talking to a lady from the Globe Mail today, and she was saying, well, she was talking to me about performing, and I was telling her how important performing is to me. That, I love going to the studio, I love writing songs, but for me the end game is to get back out on stage so I can play those songs. It's always about building a show. So I get to perform. She said, well, do you think you're addicted to the adulation? Interesting. That was one addiction I didn't think I had. But maybe, who knows? Maybe it is. I mean, I like doing it whether, I'm quite happy to do it also with a sort of private as well. I don't need that kind of adulation, but I do want to perform.
Let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the book, your early days. It sounds like it's quite idyllic. A lot of times if you read rock biographies, even actor biographies, it's not that way. And they're trying to escape something. You were an only child, great parents.
Yeah, a number of people have said to me, I kind of hate you. I kind of hate that upbringing that you had. It was so perfect. Well, I think I wanted to show, what the book's in 3 parts, and the first part, especially called Becoming John, and that, the inspiration for that was losing my dad passed away, coming up to 3 years ago, and, after he went, I sold the house that I'd grown up in. I lost the connection with the street and the neighborhood. And it was thinking about, I have no, there's no one from my parents' generation left alive. And I just thought that was just kind of extraordinary. And I was so moved by it. And the memory of them seemed to be receding like at the speed of light. And I wanted to slow down to that sense of loss. And I started thinking about creating some kind of a memorial to them. Not because their lives were any more special than any of our parents, but you know, I'm an artist, so I get to do that. You know, I get to, and usually I get to write songs about it because I'm a fan. But it just didn't feel. Well, I don't know. Maybe it would have been. It could have been an album. I love you know, the album that John Cale did for Andy Warhol. And I was thinking maybe it would be something like that. But then I was approached at the beginning of last year with the idea of writing a book.
You were not messed up as a child.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And the more that I thought about it, I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter what your experience is. You are going to get messed up in some way, you know. And I was, you know, I had, you know, I was an only child, and my mother, she stopped working when she got pregnant, so I had her complete and you know, devoted attention, which was absolute heaven. But you know, try living up to that. You know, I keep trying to tell my wife, look, this is how we do it. You know, you are entirely devoted to me. Your life revolves around mine. You live for my every breath. Because that, you know, it really worked for me when I was 3. But she's not. She says it's different. Those days are gone.
And that was where you met Nick Rhodes.
Well, I met Nick when I was. I think I was 12 or 13, and we had a mutual friend. Nick and I didn't go to the same school, but by that point I was a music fan, and you know, that was my primary.
What were you listening to?
Bowie, Roxy, Rod Stewart, Queen, sort of like the cool glam music. And a friend of mine, David Twist, he went to school. He went to Nick's school, and he said, "You guys, you know, you've got to meet this kid. He lives on the lake." Nick was 2 years younger than me. I mean, I was young, but Nick was, you know, like even younger. But he's, yeah, and we kind of, you know, we connected right away. We did over Nick Ronson. Nick Ronson was Bowie's guitar player, and you know, he was a very, very interesting musician in his own right. And it just felt like Bowie was the big star that everybody was into, so we kind of like, you know, we like the side, you know, and that became a bit of a theme actually in one of the chapters of the book.
You talk about that, about being a sideman, and you know, you think about rock stars and they're out there and big personalities, but that doesn't sound like necessarily you wanted to recede a little bit.
Well, I just couldn't quite make that move in my imagination to put myself in front of the stage with a microphone stand. I just couldn't do that. And you know, and most singers, like whether it's Simon, Timberlake, you know, they were at least in the choir at school. You know what I mean? They've at least sung publicly. I never did that. You know, but I wanted to be a part of that thing, that production. You know, when I started to go to see bands, you know, I would just marvel. I mean, everything about it. You know, the PA system, the lights, you know, the drum risers, everything. And I started, I wrote this scene out in a book about Roxy music. We were going to see Roxy music, and they were playing a theatre about the size of the Massey Hall, you know, and they were doing a weekend. And I went in. Actually, I was with Nick, and we went into the city just to hang out. It was a Saturday afternoon, and we met a couple of kids, a couple of guys, I should say, that were older than us. And they said, "Hey, you know, they're doing their sound check right now." So we went down the side of the theatre, and we could hear Roxy playing. And this was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I had no idea that bands did that. And there was about 10 kids hanging around, listening, and they were like Birmingham's biggest Roxy music fans. And they were all dressed and decked out in whatever Roxy music fans wore back then. And then the band came out, to a limo. my limo took off across town. And, you know, and I remember it very clearly, but Nick would probably remember it very differently. But I remember somebody saying, they're staying at the Holiday Inn. I know a shortcut. And like 12 of us went charging across the city.
Chasing Brian
now,
Ferry.
can anybody in this room relate to that kind of behavior? Yeah. And, you know, so, you know, you talked about the adulation at the very beginning. And you know, so I feel like we've always had a very, very strong connection with our fans. And I think one of the reasons is I know what it's like to be a fan. And I wanted to put that in the book. I wanted to give that up because, you know, so many people have given to us, you know, and created those, you know, really exciting moments. And we, you know, we were there. And I think I also had to get to an age where, you know, I mean, I don't mind admitting it. You know, there's nothing, it doesn't feel uncool to me. I was looking through the George Harrison book, actually. It was, I was looking through the enhanced ebook of the George Harrison book, which obviously he didn't write, but it was written about him, you know, in the documentary. And then his autograph books, you know, signed to George, love Little Richard.
And what did you let him come down a little more?
George Harrison didn't give us a crack.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There's always got to be someone that inspired someone else.
Yeah, and it's still there, you know. It's still like, you know, for me, keeping the flames burning, keeping the fire burning. That's what it's all about, you know. Because when you know, we're going to go back in the studio in the spring, and we're going to with Mark Ronson again. And you know, you're going to go back in, and it's kind of like climbing a creative mountain. You know, you've done it before, but still, it's like, okay, because you want it to be great. You don't just want to go in and just, you know, do any old thing. You want to make something great, and to do that, I feel like I have to go in armed with a lot of inspiration. So, you know, I have to throw a lot of music on the fire, you know, to keep myself excited, and so that I really, really want to. What's that? Thank you, darling. Thank you.
Where does the inspiration come from? Does it still come from music? Does it come from family?
Yeah, I think it does come from music, ultimately. You've got to believe, or I've got to believe, in the power of music. I mean, music, you know, gave me an identity. You know, you know, that I don't know what I do. So I'm a bit of I'm an apostle, you know, and I'm a believer. I think that music, I mean, my mother, I got her to blame. I realized that, you know, in my family, you know, pop stars were more important than politicians. Nobody talked about politicians. No one was interested in politics in my house. But get my mom started on Rod Stewart's haircut, or Brian Ferry's latest single, and she could get really excited about that. Well, you know, cut to, frankly, I'm trying to get excited in the elections, but I'm just a little bit more interested in the Roxy Music Box set, or whatever it is. Now, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, I just believe. I also know, you know, that music is, you know, the power of music. It's the greatest antidepressants. I mean, you know, if you've got your music lined up properly, you don't need antidepressants. Music can get you through everything. It's a very, very powerful form, and it's worth investing a lot of time and energy.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? There's almost nothing that, whether it's a smell or something you read, there's almost nothing that will inspire you as much as music, which I think is why we're all here, because I suspect that we're all the same, where your music was the soundtrack of all of our growing up.
Yeah.
And so to this day, you know, as I'm reading your book and you're mentioning a song, every single lyric goes to my head, and I'm sure it's the same for everybody here. It's all there. You're mentioning your parents a lot, and you said something a few minutes ago about becoming John, which is really quite literal, that you were named Nigel.
Right.
And if you can imagine, like you painted a sort of a metamorphosis for you, that it was that caterpillar to butterfly thing when you decided that you were putting that aside and turning into John.
Well, again, lacking in imagination a little bit, because I just couldn't see Nigel, you know, on the top of the pop chart. And you know, there were a couple of good reasons for that. One, I mean, I remember you know, Monty Python's Flying Circus. I was a big fan of Monty Python. And they were every Thursday night, you know, the show would be on. One night, they had a sketch called Great Twits of History. And the way that I remember it is that every twit in the sketch, his name was Nigel. And the next day at school was the worst fucking day of my life. Now, funnily enough, when I, you know, fact-checking, what's the thing with fact-checking? Now, this is not a, you know, presidential debate, so don't feel that you need to fact-check it quite so scrupulously. But when the book came out, a friend of mine who was also a writer in Germany wrote to me and said, something wrong here, John. I said, that Monty Python sketch, said they weren't all named Nigel. In fact, I think the winning twit's name was Eric, and Nigel came second. Get a life!
Yeah. Poetic license.
But you know, that's how I remember it. So, yeah.
Have the other band members read it?
Roger has read it. But Roger's really the only guy who reads rock bios, and he loved it. And I took a copy of the book to Nick. This is what I did when I asked this question. I took the first hardback copy because I felt he needed to have it. He'd already told me that he wasn't going to read it because he didn't want it to get in the way of his own memories, particularly if he wanted to write his own book. But I said, so here it is anyway. You don't have to read it, but here's one for the archives. And Nick goes, it smells good, doesn't it? Johnny, it's a good smelling book. He then went on to comment on, oh, I love that you use that picture. But you know, it's they're the last people to show you. They were there, and you know, their perceptions of events would be so different. You know, because you know, you realise that you know, from the outside looking in, you probably think we're so alike. You know, but we're so different. You know, I mean, take a random selection of 5 girls or 5 guys that are here in the audience. You'd think they're the same age, they're like, one's a Gemini, one's a Pisces, you know, but I mean, actually, we're quite different. And I think that, you know, that we're shaped by the point, you know, what I learned was how I was shaped by my own experience, you know, as indeed we all are. But when I faced fame in the first 5 years of the band, I was facing it based on the experience that I had as an only child, as a Roman Catholic, you know, who, you know, whatever my experience was, which I talk about, but I wasn't. I had a lot of yin, a little yang, or whatever it was. There was, you know, and Simon, who was like the eldest of the 2 brothers, you know, as a child, and we all did. But then that's what should we read something?
I was just going to say, would you like to read some of it?
Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. Bear with me. We're going to read, I'm going to read chapter 1, Hey Jude. Yes, this little guy here. He's very cute. He's on the screen as we speak. Okay. I'm 4 years old, confident and shy, hair blonder than it would be in my teen years. In shorts and sandals, a young prince of the neighborhood, the South Birmingham suburb of Hollywood, Pablo. 10 o'clock in the morning on any given weekday in 1964, and I've stepped down off the porch and awake, kicking at the grooved concrete driveway, watching as Mom pulls the front door closed, locks it up and puts the key in her handbag. She puts the handbag in the shopping bag, and off we go. Left off the drive and up the hill that is the street on which we live, Simon Road. Our house is number 34, one up from where the road ends. We walk together along the pavement, counting down, 32, 30, 28. On the left side of the street are all the even-numbered, semi-detached houses, single buildings designed to function as 2 separate homes, houses twin with number 36. Across the street, the odd-numbered houses are detached, each building a single dwelling, all much larger than ours, and so are the back gardens, which are long and tree-filled bordered at the bottom by a stream. The driveways are slicker too, with space for more than one car. I hold Mum's hand, remembering the Beatles song that is so often on the radio as the incline gets steeper. We reached the crest of the hill where Simon Road meets Douglas Road and turn right. We pass a 12-foot-high holly bush. The only evidence I have found suggests where the estate got its name. We march on, crossing Hollywood Lane in front of Gay Hill Golf Club, an establishment that will assume mythical proportions in my imagination as a venue for wife-swapping parties. Not that anyone in my family ever set foot in the place, and there was no truth in the rumor. Cars flash by at 20 or even 30 miles an hour. We make it to Heath Lane, another main artery of the neighbourhood, which must be taken if you're visiting the old Burnley of nans, aunts and uncles, recreational parks and bowling greens. It gets traversed a lot by the Taylor family at weekends. It must also be used by mother and son if we are to reach our destination today, St. Jude's Parish Church. All this walking, we've been doing it together for as long as I can remember. Mum doesn't drive and never will. At first I'd been in my pushchair, but now I'm old enough. We walk, side by side, which must have come as a relief to me. There's no complaining from me, it just is and ever shall be. Amen. I would go to many beautiful or inspiring churches when I was older. St. Patrick's on Fifth Avenue, St. Peter's in Rome, and Notre Dame de Paris. But St. Jude's on Glenavon Road was the most pragmatic people's church anywhere in the First World. Built in the post-World War II years, St. Jude's was intended as a temporary structure, not meant to last more than a few years. It's coming up on 20 now and yawning with cold air and aching joints. Single story, with windows every 6 feet along its length, and a roof of corrugated iron. Its crude purity enhanced the idea that St. Jude's faithful have about being the chosen ones. Why else would we gather together in this cold, ugly place, unless it was an absolute certainty that we would benefit from it? A communal sense of readiness sends us through the small lobby where, on raw wooden tables, literature is offered. Some for sale, some for free. Textbooks, Bibles, songbooks, and tour t-shirts. And other merchandise, including rosaries, crucifixes, and pendants of St. Jude's, the patron saint of hopeless cases, really. On into the nave, where there is a smell of sweat and yesterday's incense. It's usually cool in here, sometimes warm, but never hot. A tall red-headed man plays a rickety-looking organ, quietly piping sweet music that is barely there. Eno would call it ambient. Candles burn lazily with a hurried sound. On the strike at 11, the service begins. The priest enters smartly, followed by a pair of young men in white robes. The priest's team, his posse, one of whom swings a silver chalice from which more incense issues. The air in the church needs a good cleansing before the good father can breathe it. He wears elaborate clothing, a robe of green and gold silk with a red cross on his back. Beneath the cloak, ankle-length, turned-up trousers reveal the black socks and black robes of any other working man. The music surges in volume and we all stand. The red-haired man leads us in a song we know well, The Lord is my shepherd. I open the hymnal to read the words. I like this one, but like Mom, I'm too embarrassed to sing out loud. I wish I could, I just don't. But I like the feeling of togetherness that comes from everyone in the room singing the same words. Once the song is over, the priest walks to the dais. He glances down at his Bible, opens his hands wide and says, "Let us pray."
You're very candid in this book. And as the story unfolds, you talk a lot about being out on the road and the loneliness that came along with that. And the ways you tried to solve that lonely problem.
Yeah.
Whether, if you turned to drugs at one point and you're very open about that. Where do you think that came from? With all the adulation again, was it isolated?
Yeah, exactly. Part of the process was trying to understand that. Fame is very addictive also, talking about addictions. The kind of attention that you start getting when you're the center of that kind of attention, that kind of energy. And I found it very hard to turn off from. I started drinking, I started drugging. I actually feel like the drugs helped me become the John Taylor that I needed to be. I watched an interview with me taken the week that Planet Earth came out, and I was watching it. I thought, this guy's never going to make it. He's so inside, he's so insular, confident, and clearly believing in his band. It's so painful, in yielding up answers to the question. But then, 6 months later, I was on some Saturday morning TV show, like the life and soul of the party. Well, what was different? Well, what was different was I started dipping into, various, drugs, and it just, I feel like, I don't know that I could have become, that guy. I feel like I needed a bit of help. So, the drugs now feel like they help. But then, of course, I couldn't control it, they took control of me.
And how long did that go on?
It went on for quite a while, actually. I mean, it wasn't until, it escalated as the kind of chaos, as the whole career, got going. By the time that the single Silver tour, it was really starting to get in the way of my, work was starting to get in the way of my mastering. And, but like at no point, I mean, it was too out of control to take a break. I watched the rest of the guys, got married. Andy got married, Roger got married, Simon got married, and they all said, I want a life. I don't mind doing this, I like being in this band, but I also want a life. Me, all I wanted to do, I just wanted the party to just keep going, so I was like, well, let's find another project, let's find another, until I just sort of hit a wall. But, I mean, I went through the whole, the reunion. When I say the reunion, I mean the Notorious reunion. Around about that time, actually, when we picked up the pieces, Simon, Nick, and I, it was clear that that it was going to be tough, because up until A View to a Kill, everything we touched it turned to, well, and we were just on we were I don't know this word zeitgeist, where you don't have to think about being cool, you just are, you're just on top of it, you're so in tune with what is happening, the currents in fashion and society, whatever you're into, that what you're doing is just right, and our first 5 years of our albums were just right. But then we kind of took a break and we stepped back. And then when the three of us came back together, the train was kind of over there. That's how it felt to me. And then we felt like we were playing catch up. And we were kind of 2 men down. But there was good and there was bad to it. But there was a feeling, there was a different feeling in the second half of the 80s. And politics had become a part, Live Aid changed the way everybody had to present themselves a little bit differently, that kind of decadence, the colourful aspect of the 80s sort of turned itself down. And then, artists like Prince and Madonna, they were both very sober, they ran sober tours, and suddenly it became obvious that, getting high wasn't cool anymore. Whereas, at the end of the 70s, as I came of age, getting high was really cool.
Right. Did the other guys in the band come to you, or what was the moment where you thought, this has got to change? Did they address it with you?
No, I don't think they ever really did. I mean, it was just, I just wanted to be the best, band member I could be, so I thought, what have I got to do? Maybe I've got to try, not drinking. I mean, one of the things I learned was I thought I could just stop taking drugs, but then I realized pretty quickly that if I drank, I'd want to take drugs. So that didn't work. So then it was, oh Christ, I've got to stop drinking as well. Well, doing that by yourself is really, really difficult. I would bump along, I'd get a couple of months, and then bang, I'd go out again, big time. Amanda, my first wife, she got pregnant, and that was like a really good excuse to stop drinking. So we kind of we did that. But it was they call it in recovery, they call it white knuckling. Which is when you're trying to stop doing something, but you don't really have a program. You don't really have either anybody you're sharing with. Like Weight Watchers, for instance. I mean, that really works because you're in it with a bunch of other people comparing notes. You're not in your head all the time. You're sharing the experience of what you're going through. So, the first, for years, I just tried to get on top of it in my own head, so to speak, and it just didn't work. I mean, it wasn't until where were we? What were we doing? I think we were halfway through Thank You, and that's when I hit bottom, because I was just so miserable. And then I was fortunate enough to meet somebody in London who suggested I should go to England.
And that was it. You went in, right? It was like
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I called Nick actually. I said, "There's somebody's woman. She thinks I'm one of those Betty Ford types." He was like, "Really? Really? What is it that bad a problem?" Well, because rarely do people understand, from the outside. Because from the outside, it didn't seem like that good. But,
was it part of no one wanting to say no to the rock star?
Oh, we're way beyond that point.
Oh, okay.
We've gone way. We're now like, I'm in my 30s now. I'm supposed to be a grown up at this point.
Right.
So it's not even, that idea of being a rock star has been and gone a long time ago. At this point, it's like in order to have a sort of valid existence, I needed to be a husband, father to my young daughter. I needed to be able to pay the bills on time. I needed to be able to do what basically everybody else learns to do in their early 20s that I'd never really figured out. And I was still, I'm kind of caught between the two, because you get this sort of suspended adolescence when you get gifted a career like that, And when all my peers were sort of learning how to do life on life's terms in their early 20s, I was just, somebody was taking care of it.
Right. Yeah, you talk about how you can get the notes under your door where it's like, you are in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's Friday.
Yeah, there's enabling for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it wouldn't matter, so it wouldn't really matter how bad the hangover was. It was very clear what town you were in.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder, do we have the microphones around to take a couple of questions from the audience?
Yeah, right there.
I'm sure there's, okay, there we go. Coming right up
First
front.
question right here, down. Hi, John.
Hi.
My question is, I've just started reading the book, and I'm astonished how good your memory is when you're very young. Because I can't tell you what my first day of school was like. And so I'm wondering, how is it that you're able to remember that?
Right, well, I think there's two answers to that. One is, thank God for wiki timeline, and for the really, it's only the middle part of the book that years of the band, which is very much, a calendar of, events. It was important to get the timing right on that. And you can go online, and I had these boxes of memorabilia that I was actually able to check. I had all the old schedules and itineraries that I could see. The first part of the book, it wasn't even that important. It's not even that important to get specific dates, really. They're just impressions. The other thing is, if you can't remember the date exactly, kind of make it up. I feel that the important thing was to give the sense of how things happened. I'm not that tied to specifics in that sense. For me, it was about trying to catch a spirit. And once I knew I wanted to go for this 3-part thing, which was like growing up, beginning of the band, and then, working through, becoming a grown-up, getting, dealing with my parents' death. I knew it was about getting the spirit of those 3 ideas. More about that than about getting very definite dates. Nice.
Hi, John.
Hi.
One word that comes to mind when you think of each member of the band.
Oh, God.
Good question.
Actually, that's the word. Nick, God. Simon, God. Roger, drum God. Yeah. I got out of that one, didn't I?
I like that question. Well done. Yeah. Nicely answered as well.
Hey John, back here.
Hi.
Thrilled to see you.
Thanks.
I wonder, I'm sure you don't want to say anything bad about Andy, not that you ever would, but what's the story with Reportage? What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think, that was the, Reportage was the album that we started after Astronaut, and we recorded it, we rented a house in San Francisco, actually, Marin County. In fact, it was Andre Agassi's house. And we set up the equipment, and we recorded a lot of songs quite quickly. Really, the feeling was that it was quite strong. we took it to the record company, and the record company were going through some kind of trauma, and they weren't sure it was the right album for us to put out at the time. They said, well, you know, what about if you did 1 or 2 songs? Are there any producers that you'd like to work with? So we said, well, at that time, we liked the idea of working with Timbaland. And it took them about 6 months to get a session with Timbaland. So we just kind of, you know, trod water, you know, waiting. By the time the studio session came around, you know, our relationship with Andy kind of degenerated. And Andy, I mean, the thing was, I think if he was to be really honest, Andy doesn't travel well. You know, he doesn't really like being on the road. He's a homebody, you know, and he's happy to, you know, work out of his studio. He's got a big family. And I think with the commitment to the band, I mean, when we got back together for the reunion, it was essentially like a 1-album tour cycle that we were committing to. But of course, the 4 of us, the addicts, you know, the 4 of us, we never wanted to stop. We're so happy, we don't ever want it to stop. But I think with Andy, it was like it stopped being fun for him. I think, you know, the most disappointing, the timing, that he never got to play in those Timbaland sessions. Because that really would have been something. I felt like we went into those sessions with Timbaland really weakened, not having Andy there. Once we realised he wasn't going to be a part of it, then we were able to sort of adjust, and then we went into that sort of electro direction for Red Carpet Massacre, and then Dom stepped in. Dom's a fantastic guitar player. I mean, he brings a great energy to the band. Thanks.
We have a question right here.
Hi, Sean.
Where are you? Hi.
I'm wondering about the process of writing. Was it painful? Was it therapeutic for you? And how long did it take you to?
It was very painful, but fortunately the therapy was really good. There was. I think once I committed to the idea of doing it, I really got into it, and there was 1 or 2 key scenes that I thought, if I can get those scenes right, I'll have an interesting book. One of them was the scene with Sting, for instance, when I'm a kid and I'm seeing the Police play. Well, that wasn't the kind of story that you're going to tell in a band interview. It would have just fallen flat, and it would have been wasted. I held that story back, thinking one day I'm going to present that story just right. I mean, the night where I'm like really trashed, you know, it was a night like tonight actually. It was a serious storm going on in New York City, and I'm in my 27th floor apartment, and it's one of those Quentin Tarantino nights. You know, it's like, you know, a little bit Scarface. You know, a really crazy night. But what do I do at 8 o'clock in the morning? Am I calling for hookers? No. I'm calling Father Cassidy. You know, because I'm calling my parish priest, who I haven't spoken to in 3 years, because that's where my head was at. That's how sick and twisted I was. And I thought, wow, that was such a crazy, crazy night. If I could get that down on paper and communicate that could be a good scene. I haven't seen or read that before. So I got a few scenes like that, and they became the cornerstones of the book. And then I started working with Tom Sykes, who was just fantastic. And we would get together. He would come and stay with me in my house, and we had the dining table, and he had his computer on one side, and I had mine on the other. And we would bounce things back and forth. It was very much like working with a producer. I came to him with like the raw demos, which were my raw chapters, and then he would produce them, saying I think we need some backing vocals right here, you know, and maybe an orchestra. This one needs the orchestra. But it was a good, we had a good working relationship, and we just kept the thing moving.
Question over here. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. Hello. So my question for you is, you had your exchange with Sting, and then later on you sort of mentioned that he had said that he wished he had written Ordinary World, and you sort of with that. So are there any songs that you wish you would have written?
Oh. Well, actually, I'll tell you where I went to my old school about a month ago, and the children, the choir, they sang that Coldplay song. Is it called Fix You?
Oh, yeah.
I thought, yeah, I wish I'd written that. Yeah, I like that.
All right, we have a question back here.
4 years ago,
because they made a video of Never Too Late. Now, how do you feel about them carbon copying the video for Rio down to the frame? And how do you feel about your work being transfused to the newer generation?
I feel good about it. I mean, I think it's I think for the most part, what do they say? You know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. You know, we were talking the other night about, I guess Madonna's on tour at the moment, and she plays Express Yourself, and then she plays Born This Way. You know, which was like, I mean, I remember when I heard Born This Way, and I thought, what is she doing? You know, so clearly. But you know, that word homage goes a long way. But no, I mean, I'm very happy when people take our work and, you know, and do whatever they like to do with it. No. No, my thinking was, I don't know what she's talking about, but just go with it. Just go with it.
They owe you money.
Fantastic. We have a question right over here.
Hi, so we've got author, actor, singer-songwriter, sort of. Well, you haven't recorded since I Do Unedited. What's next that you'd like to try?
Fact check.
Oh. So what's next?
I don't know, I could use a vacation actually. I'm kind of ready. The band have been on hiatus since the tour, since we had to cancel the shows here. And everybody else just went, whoop, you know, and I've been doing this. So I'm kind of ready to get bored for a little while actually. Get bored so that I'm really hungry to get back in the studio and really want to make a great record. I think that's, you know, back to basics.
We have a question over
What?
here.
Oh, God, I had the most delicious nap before I came here. No, not the Four Seasons.
Nice try, though.
Yeah.
Very nice.
A for effort.
All right, we have a question over here.
Hi, John.
Hi.
I'm Kathy, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming. My question's two, if you don't mind. First is, what's your favorite song to play live, and what's the hardest song to play live?
Oh, okay. Well, favorite song, honestly, all the greatest hits are fun to play. You know, and we've stopped fighting the hits. You know, we're not playing Rio anymore. You know, we're not, just because people want to hear it. You know, but actually, there's a reason why people want to hear the great songs. They're really well put together. You know, the parts are fun, and I find that I have a great time playing all the obvious hits. The hardest song to play, well, funnily enough, when we, I forget which tour it was, it could have been within the last few years, and we decided we wanted to play a couple of songs off Seven and the Ragged Tiger that we'd never played before. And Shadows on Your Side is one of my favourite songs from that album, but I could not, for the life of me, figure out what the hell I was playing. And I must have mentioned it in some interview, and this bassist, fan, calls himself a fan, you know, created a tutorial just for me and posted it on YouTube. I felt such a loser. So I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to figure that damn thing out. But isn't that amazing, you know? And he came to me, I did a bassist convention 2 weeks ago, a very small group of people. But that was in Los Angeles, and the guy came to me and said, I said, how's the guy that put that tutorial? I said, you can take that smug look off your face.
All right, well, I know we could listen all night, but we want everyone to get a chance to meet you, so let's take two more questions, and we have one right here.
Hi, John.
Hi.
What was the most difficult part of the book to write?
Well, I knew there were going to be drugs in it. You know, because I wanted to get to like the recovery bit. You know, it was very important to me to have that happy ending, that the clarity that comes from the happy ending. But you know, then I knew I was going to have to go down. You know, I was going to have to share with the reader a little bit of some of the seedier. I mean, it's not as bad. Trust me, it's not like what it could have been. You know, but I knew I was going to have to commit to saying, yes, I did this, and and I felt it was kind of like losing your virginity almost. I feel once I go public with this, there's no turning back. It's like letting your hair go grey. Which of course we're trying to avoid for as long as possible. But once you do it, you kind of can't go back to dyeing the hair. So yeah, I think acknowledging, which reminds me, I need to get it done. But yeah, I mean, it was just putting. I think the drugs.
All right, we have our final question right here.
Gray hair is good, by the way, John.
But it's so Richard Gere.
Okay, all right. By the way, I love you. We all do. Would love to know, John, because we are all getting a little gray here. What's on John Taylor's bucket list?
Well, lately I've been thinking about getting into boxing. It's like nobody's ever really punched me squarely in the face, and for some strange reason I'm feeling like I'd like to get in a ring with somebody and do that. So I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I should do it with girls. That could work. I mean, travel. I'd like to go. I mean, there are places to go. I've never driven around a racetrack at extremely high speed, but I kind of want to live for a very long time. So I've kind of taken. What else have I been talking about? While I was in Europe on the last trip, I decided I wanted to start tap dancing. I was in a meeting somewhere, and in the next room there was a tap dance class going on, and I thought to myself, I fucking love tap dancing. But it's just when you hear like 12 people go, it's just great. I called Gila. I said, oh yeah, I think I want to do tap dancing. Lead balloon. I just got this feeling that tap dance class equal divorce. So that's not going to happen. But it's still on my very private bucket list.
John, did you want to read any more?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to read one more. This is from the, I decided to finish the book on what was a very,
Spoiler alert!
what did you say? I can assure you we are at this part. We are at this Coachella. Do you all know Coachella? Big festival in California. So we performed at Coachella on the 17th of April of last year. Behind the stage, to the side of the ramp, our band has gathered. We've stepped off a pair of golf carts that have brought us a half-mile from our dressing room in battery-powered silence. The air is warm and electric blue. We acknowledge each other without words, using nods and smiles, backslaps and other gestures of encouragement. Instincts surge. Every other concern falls away. Since 1981, we've released our songs on vinyl, cassette tape, CD, digital audio tape, mini disc, ringtones, MP3, streaming and download for purchase or rental. I've long since learned to relax and cease worrying about how the music finds its way to your ears. Just right. As long as I keep those calluses on my fingertips hard and maintain an enthusiasm for making music, I'll be happy most of the time. We've come a long way together to get to this holy place, Coachella, and a lot has changed in the last 30 years. Cell phones, SUVs, nose hair trimmers, supplements, Propecia, paperless itineraries, in-room humidifiers, steam rooms, saunas and gyms, pre-show massage, Twitter, Spotify and Amazon, touring with 3,000 songs in my pocket. I need to change that. It's 30,000 now. I've got songs in my pocket and 30 books on an iPhone. Therapy by Skype. Great coffee everywhere. Another difference is out there, where there are just as many men as women in the audience tonight. At day's end, my job is to be a catalyst for connectivity, to help bring people closer together, men and women, girls and boys. That's what the music has done for me. What hasn't changed are the notes that run up and down the neck of the bass, and the feeling that hits you when one note rubs against another in a way that sets the hair up on the back of the neck, and the sound of the crowd. And the feeling of adrenaline that charges through my body when I hear it, holding that 4-string machine gun on stage, less than 6 feet away from you. Simon is running through his vocal warm-ups, which we so often rivet without. Nick has a plastic cup in his left hand and is taking sips from it, now reaching his right hand upward to flash a snapshot on his camera. We all fiddle with our in-ear monitors, trying the volume, listening for interference. A photographer from Spin magazine wants to take a picture. We assemble reluctantly, everyone just wanting to get on with the show. It's an outdoor festival, so tour manager Craig will not get to give his usual cue to take the house lights down. Tonight, that is one of God's jobs, and what a job of it he is doing. A glittering bauble of sunlight fights to stay above the horizon. A full moon appears, a late-coming VIP that takes a seat above the lighting gantry at 11 o'clock high. Nature presents for us a better light show than any human could ever have created. A perfect breeze causes my border scarf to flutter. All the signs are good. We walk together up the ramp. The stage is set, the electronics are primed, the audience ready. Nick walks on first, in a black net snood borrowed from Lady Gaga. He walks across the stage and onto his riser, puts down his camera and touches the Andromeda synthesizer, from which issues forth a sample of the exact sound he used to begin our first Planet Earth, written and recorded over 30 years ago. My heart is pounding. There is no better time than this. When I'm about to take the stage and the future belongs to me, this is what the moment feels like as I walk out onto the stage one more time. Roger's drums kick in. An 8-bar count and I'm in with him. The galloping groove that started it all. 30,000 California kids, eyes and teeth smiling, cameras and cell phones popping, a million tiny seductions all at once. And the music never sounded better. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
My God.
Oh, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, John Taylor.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the amazing reading and Liza for being a fantastic host. Please come back all the time to do this. And so for everyone here for the signing, if you're here for the signing, stay put. If you're in the chairs, we're going to go row by row. Just start packing up all of your things. Get your stuff ready. Get your books out. We're going to be bringing you up. We're just going to set up the stage. Give us 1 second, and we'll get ready to go.